This exam question is about stem cells, and it says suggest 2 advantages other than an increased probability of survival of using umbilical cord blood stem cells instead of bone marrow stem cells. So umbilical cord blood stem cells are found in the umbilical cord, and bone marrow stem cells are found in the inside of large bones like your femur. All right. So first thing, there's a greater availability of umbilical cord stem cells. You're more likely to find donors. Not many people will willingly transplant their bone marrow stem cells, but there's a much greater availability of cord cells, and people are not going to be too worried about donating stem cells from umbilical cords. So more likely to find donors. It's easy to harvest. Cord cells. There's no pain for the donor at all. Having your bone marrow removed is a very painful procedure. If you're using umbilical cord, there's no pain for the donor. Right, the cells in umbilical cord are at an early stage of development. Which means they can differentiate into a wider range of cells. Your bone marrow stem cells can only differentiate into red blood cells and white blood cells. The umbilical blood stem cells can be stored for future. So they can be used in gene therapy, for example, of the donor. So you can store your own umbilical cord stem cells for use later on in your life. And also slightly mismatched cord cells work just as well as bone marrow cells. Without the risk of rejection. So there's more chance of matching the cord cells to people that are going to require those stem cells. So great availability of cord cells, more likely to find the donors. It's easier to harvest. There's no pain for the donor. Cells are at an early stage of development, so they can specialize and differentiate into more cells. They can be stored for the future, for example, for gene therapy for the donor. And if they're slightly mismatched, they work just as well as bone marrow cells. 6 marking points. We need 2 of those.